A celebration galore for the people of Ondo State as the Chief Judge swears in Mr. Rotimi Akeredolu as the 6th elected governor of the state. The event took place in Akure, the state capital, and was well attended by members of the All Progressives Congress and leaders as well as supporters. Ekpe, the town of the governor of Lagos State, has now been taken over by suspected kidnappers. Farmers in Igbodu community cry out to the government to save them in the hands of these daredevil criminals. They say although they are willing to contribute their quota to the present agricultural development, but they are no more safe in their farms, and the police in Lagos should have their cause. Now, in the meantime, growing tension yet again among Nigerians living in South Africa following reports of another likely xenophobic attack on the 17th of February. Although the South African High Commissioner to Nigeria, His Excellency Lulu Nguni, is dismissing fears over another attack, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Diaspora, Abike Dabiri-Erewa, is calling on South African authorities to address the challenge of attacks on Nigerians before it results into a reprisal. She, however, asked the African Union to urgently intervene in the attacks against Nigerians living in South Africa, describing the attacks as an unnecessary setback and asking Nigerians to be extra cautious. Welcome to State of the Nation. These are the two burning issues we'll be looking at today. Don't forget that we're still also talking about the president who's been out of the country. That is still very much trending on our hashtag. Don't forget that these are some of the things that you get to find out on our website. Welcome everyone in Nigeria and the rest of the world. I'm Sulaiman Alede. It's State of the Nation. Don't forget data feeds coming through in one place all at the same time. channelstv.com, youtube.com/channelsweb. You can visit m.channelstv.com. Wherever you are, it's a live stream. You can also be part of the program, send in your tweets. You have my handle there, and of course use the hashtag State of the Nation for real-time interaction. To further discuss the xenophobic attacks in South Africa with us on State of the Nation, I have with me in our Abuja studios the Chairman, House Committee on Foreign Affairs, Honorable Nena Ukeje-Alendu. She joins us this evening. Good to have you join us, Honorable Ukeje-Alendu. Quite frankly, what do you make of this recent attacks on Nigerians living in South Africa?
Well, of course, South African xenophobic attacks have become a recurring decimal. From 1994, we've had concerns about these xenophobic attacks. It's carried on unabated over time. And, of course, this recent spate of xenophobic attacks is just confirmation, further confirmation that, unfortunately, South Africans are indeed people who have xenophobic tendencies. Every year, every so often we have these conversations. Be it 62 people dead or 7 people dead as in last year or whatever, we just keep seeing a recurring decimal. And I think that the time has come for us to have some kind of institutional coalition, international coalition against xenophobia. Of course, there was the same kind of international coalition against racism in South Africa, where the rest of the world came together and decided that it was time to stamp out apartheid. And I think that the time has come, quite frankly, for there to be the same sustained international coalition against South African xenophobia and all hate crimes. It's tragic, it's unfortunate, and as one of the leaders, the second largest economy in Africa, one would think that they'd be alive to their responsibilities to the rest of the world. And for me, as far as I'm concerned, this is the worst case of memory failure for the South Africans, because surely they must remember that it was the same foreigners that came together to liberate them from their country. So aside from it being the worst case of memory failure I see, I also think that, you know, it has just gone on unabated, and every time it happens, South African government issues apologies to the rest of the world. The rest of the people pick up their lives and go back, and then again they do nothing about the institutional, political reasons behind it, and it just continues unabated. Because, I mean, with the economic figures coming out of South Africa, unemployment at 26%, their growth at 0.2%. Of course, hunger, anger, a feeling of disenfranchisement, lack of government policies to abate or to make provisions for people living in the townships. I'm not optimistic unless there is some kind of international intervention that we're not going to see this in the next couple of months.
You know, when we talk about international intervention, one would have thought that it seems as if it's a helpless case. Is the nation helpless, knowing full well that you've always been on this? You're very passionate about Nigerians living outside the country, but now that we're talking about international intervention, is the country helpless? Can't we do something on this on our own, by ourselves?
Well, you know, we have jurisdictional challenges. For instance, the Parliament of Nigeria, we can make laws for the good governance of Nigeria. But let me make the point that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has done what they can do within the diplomatic channels available to them. They have summoned the South African ambassador. They've asked him. He's made unequivocal statements of apology. He's regretted the fact that the South African police did not act as quickly as they should have. He, of course, reaffirmed South Africa's commitment to the relationship with Nigeria and respect for our bilateral relations as contained within the Nigerian-South African agreements. But having said that, I know that Nigerians want something to be done. I know that Nigerians want the Nigerian government to issue strongly worded statements. The Minister of Foreign Affairs has done so. Yesterday, I watched a statement by the Minister of Foreign Affairs too, Honorable Buka, Her Excellency Buka Ibrahim, and she said that we've summoned the South African ambassador twice. Now, of course, there are engagements, and we believe that when two countries are friendly nations, and I always make the point that the governments of Nigeria and South Africa are very friendly. Our presidents are very friendly. President Jacob Zuma had come to Nigeria and spoken to us very passionately about the interventions of Nigeria in the apartheid days, to which, of course, I said, and it was covered very widely even by your channel, that it was a perfect message, but it was the wrong audience. I think that the South African government needs to do more of that. Now, what can we as a country do? We can start to look at our domestic policies, that in a world where there is so much migration, that our domestic policies are such that do not support so much migration. There's over 700,000 Nigerians currently living in South Africa. Now, of course, we constantly encourage that they register with the embassies so that the embassies are aware of where they are at every point in time. Of course, the interventions, evacuation interventions. NEMA, we talked about a 24-hour intervention, which is already there to be activated in the event that Nigerians need be evacuated. But what can we as a country, aside from the diplomatic channels and probably the not so regular diplomatic channels like legislative diplomacy, for instance, where we engage with the South African Parliament and try to get them to recognize their responsibility to the rest of Africa, especially as the second largest economies in Africa, and Africa stands on a pivot of Nigeria and South Africa, and to remind them of their responsibility to the rest of the world. We do have jurisdictional challenges, and of course, as contained in our constitution, we will deal with diplomatic issues by conciliation and reconciliation.